Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And today we have another top 10 list for you. This topic was voted on by our Patreon community, and it's an interesting one. It's one that we haven't really discussed in a while, but one that we definitely have answers to.
Sure, yeah. Well, if you don't know by the title, it is 10 games that we regret getting rid of. So basically games that were in our collection, we played them, we then at some point decided to cull them, and then now looking back on it, we're like, that was actually a pretty good game. Maybe we should have hung on to that, or maybe we want to just play it again.
And so this is also a topic that is kind of hot at the moment. A lot of people are getting rid of their games.
Yeah.
A lot of people are culling. Our friends over at Board Gaming Ramblings are doing a whole, several month series on keeping or culling their entire collection.
I think they're trying to play over 600 games of theirs and deciding at that moment after they've played it, are they going to keep it or are they going to get rid of it? And so they have an entire series. We'll link to their channel down below.
Yes. And so between the two of us, who would you say is more into culling, getting rid of games?
Now?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that answer to that has changed,
It
right?
has changed, yeah. In the past, it was you.
Yes.
Now it's me.
Before we started getting to content creation, it was definitely me. I would bring Naveen over to the shelf every now and then and say, look, we need to get rid of some games. Yeah. And he always wanted to keep everything.
Yeah, I had that kind of collector mentality where it's just like, might as well just have it, But as I've kind of progressed more and more into the hobby, I realized that, some of these games I might not play for a very long time. And so it's better served to give those games off to somebody else who would play it, somebody who will discover it and play it a handful of times.
Yes.
And they can enjoy it.
So especially now that we're in content creation and we get, copies to review, we don't have that much space. And so now the tables have turned. I'm more of the person who's like, I want to play that game a little bit more.
At some point, yeah.
And Naveen wants to get rid of everything. So
everything.
Anyway, this is going to be 10 games that we regret getting rid of, that we wish we kept.
And this is going to be a combined list because obviously it's our combined collection.
Yes.
So we're not going to do 10 each.
But we do have a couple of runner-ups, as usual. It wouldn't be a standard top 10 without them. So should I go first or you?
You can go first.
Me? All right. So starting with our runner-ups. My runner-up is a card game that I don't know how popular it was back then. We got it when we started getting into the hobby, and we played it a lot.
We did, yeah.
And it's a game published by Nothing Sacred Games in 2015 called Birds of a Feather. This is a game designed by Teal Fristow. And the thing that was interesting about Birds of a Feather is it's a deck of cards that has a lot of different species of birds. And so it is hard to explain how to play this game. You're trying to
observe.
See.
Yeah, you're trying to observe different species of birds.
Yes, it's bird watching. And so you're trying to see the most amount of species of birds. And the way that you do that is you play a card from your hand. Everybody's going to play simultaneously. You flip it over. And when everybody reveals their card, each bird has a specific habitat that they're assigned to. So you not only get to check off the bird that you played, but also the other birds that are in the same habitat. And then when everybody chooses cards for the next round, all of the previous round's cards stay. So the same concept happens. You get to cross off the bird that you played, and any of the birds that are in the same habitat from the round previous, as well as the current round, get all crossed off. So it's a matter, it's very like a meta, you're trying to foresee what cards people are going to play. You know how many of each card are in the deck.
Right.
So it was an interesting one. It was one that we weren't playing a lot of at the time, and so we decided to get rid of it. But in hindsight, it's such a small footprint.
It's such a small box, just like this. There was an app also
that made scoring easier.
Yeah, you can track and score easier, and it played up to 7 players. So sometimes you get to a place when you can meet up, and there's about 6-7 people together, and you haven't broken up into groups. It's a perfect game. It's not very long, and you can kind of say, okay, let's all play this together, and then we can break up into separate groups and start playing games.
It's a nice starter game. Filler starter game.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is my runner-up, Birds of a Feather.
Okay, I also have a runner-up. This is a game that's a runner-up because Monique has never played it, so therefore I felt like it wasn't fair to put it on this list. But this one is a game that's from Fantasy Flight Games. It came out in 2011, designed by Christian Peterson, and it is Game of Thrones, the 2nd edition. So if you're familiar with this game, it is based off of the novels as well as the TV show, very popular. And it is a 3 to 6 player game where you are basically taking on the roles of heads of different houses, if you're familiar with Game of Thrones. And you're basically warring to be the supreme, the king of the throne.
The
throne, yeah, you're playing the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
This game is very long, and so it's just never getting to the table. Also, you have to teach it, which is kind of a little bit of a bear. But there's also a very big, obviously, king-making a component to the game because clearly you're trying to win the throne. and so everybody can kind of counteract somebody who's out in front, and so there's a lot of this like kind of push-pull. A lot of alliances get created because it's like, well, we don't want him to win, so let's just work together to stop that. And then now the new potential king is out there. You know, if there's an opportunity for me to play it, then I will play it. So that is my runner-up. That is Game of Thrones 2nd edition.
So number 10. Our number 10 is a card game that was published in 2015, and it's a game that we actually covered on our channel. And it's called Oh My Goods. This is published by Lookout Games and designed by Alexander Pfister. We had included it as a part of our Alexander Pfister series, but we don't own the game anymore. We had acquired it in a math trade, I think, or I think like a local flea market for a local convention for very cheap, like several years ago. And then we played it with the older rules. We didn't quite like it. If you were following along with our Alexander Pfister series, you may know that our opinion of it has changed quite a bit after rediscovering it and playing it and playing with the updated rule set. Now I miss it. Now I regret it. I really enjoyed it when we covered it.
So the copy that we covered was a friend of ours' copy.
Yes.
So
we borrowed it.
It's not like we covered it, played it, enjoyed it, and then got rid of it.
It's I would still consider like a filler type, but it's still crunchy, and it has a lot of like Euro mechanisms in a very small card deck of cards footprint.
Multi-use cards.
Yes. So I do regret that one. That is Oh My Goods. I may end up picking it up again in the future. We will see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, our number 9. This is a game that came out in 2019. It's a roll and write. It was published by Thunderworks and designed by Jordi Adan. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. This is Cartographers. So Cartographers is a roll and write that's based in the, what is that universe?
Role player
universe.
Which is another game by Thunderworks.
And so this is actually a really good roll and write. We played it so much when it first came out with a bunch of different groups of friends that I think I just fatigued myself of it.
I have no idea why we got rid of it.
2019,
honestly.
There's a lot of roll and writes coming out around that time. We played that, man, at so many game nights back to back to back that it physically just kind of got fatiguing on my brain. Like reteaching it to people, it just, for some reason, it lost its luster for a little bit there. But now that it's been almost 2 years since we got rid of it, now I'm having that like, I'd like to play it again. It's pretty clever. You can mess with other people's little terrain that they're building up. And so
you can draw monsters on your opponent's maps because you're essentially building a map. You're a cartographer. You're building a map and you're trying to place, I don't remember exactly now, but you're trying to place things properly on the map to score you most amount of points, depending on the scoring objectives.
Typical roll and write,
We regret that one. That is a fantastic roll and write, and it
really
was released in a year where a ton of roll and writes came out.
2018, 2019, right around that time, So that is our number 9, Cartographers.
All right, moving along to our number 8. So our number 8 is a game that was released in 2013. So this came out before we really deep dove into the hobby. It is very kind of chess-like, I guess, but set in space. And it is published by Funforge. It's called Quantum. So this game is designed by Georges Bouchelin and Kieran Yanner. And the premise of this game is you are moving dice around a space-themed board, I suppose.
And the map is made up of these card tiles, and so they're changing from game to game. So it's never like one stagnant board that you're going to be playing.
But the dice that you use, they represent different ships, and the ships can move in certain ways, and they also remove other people's ships from the board depending on which type of ship it is. So I thought it was really neat in that regard, and I believe the object of the game is you're trying to control a certain number of areas. And you do that by positioning your ships in a specific way in those different tiles.
And so, this is my responsibility here. I'm the one that got this one culled back, and this is like earlier into the board gaming hobby.
You did cull it.
I know that
it was you.
I didn't do it without your permission, but like I'm the one that like kind of said, okay, this is the one that needs to go out. And now that I'm deeper in the hobby and I can look back, I'm like, that was a really sound mechanically sound game. It's now out of print, by the way, so I don't think...
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I think they might do a reprint. I think it's in high enough demand. It's ranked pretty high on BGG, I want to say.
It's pretty crunchy. Like, that is a strategy game. Chess-like, right? Area control. It is area control.
And we do call it chess-like, but it can play up to 4 players, I believe. It's not a 2-player game.
I think we say chess-like because of the kind of like the back and forth going around the board.
The headiness.
The asymmetry of the ships, of the ship's movements. But yeah, it's very heady.
Heady, yeah.
I would not mind playing that game again.
Yep.
That was our number 8, Quantum.
Okay, moving on. Our number 7. This is a game from GMT, and it's designed by Thomas Lehman, and he's done a lot of things. This is made in 2005, and it's a 18xx game. It's called 1846 Race for the Midwest.
Yes.
Okay, so 18xx games. Who decided to call this one? I think it was
we collectively decided to call that one because
Yes.
we had played one 18xx game,
Which
and
was
I
this
think
one.
it was that one.
Yeah.
It's funny because we played it, and then we decided to get it afterwards. We got it in a math trade.
We got it in a math trade.
in
yeah.
Shrink,
Brand new in Shrink.
and then we decided to call it without even playing it again.
You know what? So this is one of those things. We have a friend who owns it, and our friend is a big 18xx
Yes.
fan. So, and he always has an itch to play an 18xx game, so we can always play this game with him.
Mm-hmm.
So then we decided, okay, it's taking up space on the shelf. We're not playing it on our own.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and call it. And so this is basically a train game. If you're not familiar with 18xx games,
Mm-hmm.
there's
They're like train operas.
Train operas,
If
yes.
they're space operas, these are train operas.
Yes, you are trying to increase the value of stock by owning different companies,
Mm-hmm.
managing those companies, laying down track. And these are very, very long games. I
Yes.
think the first time we played it was like 6 hours.
That
was
is one of the criticisms of 18xx games. They
Yeah.
can be quite long.
Quite long.
You're kind of like in it. And in addition, it doesn't play two.
Yes,
And a
3 to
lot of
5.
the games that we tend to keep around are the games that we can just pull off the shelf and play, and that's not one of them.
So that is our number 7, 1846, Race for the Midwest.
Okay, so our number 6. This is a game that I think I called.
You did, yes.
Yeah, I
It was
don't
her
know
decision.
why, but this was published in 2017 by Simon, and it's designed by Paolo Mori, and it's a game called Ethnos. So this is a game about
Mythological creatures of
fantasy
different factions.
creatures. Yeah, fantasy creatures have different factions that you're trying to control the map by playing them in certain ways.
Yes.
It's kind of like Ticket to Ride-esque in the way that you draw the cards
Uh-huh.
and play them, but the factions kind of behave asymmetrically, and that's the cool part about it. And there are several factions in one box, so you can mix and match and play with the ones that you want to play with that day.
Mm-hmm.
But why did we call this?
You know, I like this one a lot. I actually didn't want to call it, and then you kind of convinced me into doing it. But
My fault.
yeah, it plays. I think it plays up to 5, maybe 6 players. And we went to a local convention, and we played it at a pretty high player count. And I enjoyed it, but you weren't enjoying your time there. So I don't know if it was a situation that we were in, but it was after that play that you're like, yeah, I think I'm
I
done
think I'm
with
ready
it.
to part with it.
Yeah.
I think it was because that game, you can definitely go a few rounds of just top decking, just drawing from the top of the deck.
Yes.
And then at that point, you feel like, am I really playing the game? Or am I just like
Hunting.
chancing it?
Yeah, you
Or
just-
either chancing it or you're hunting.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're doing when you're top decking something, right?
Right.
So I think that happened a little bit too much in that specific game, and we thought like, okay, maybe it's time to part with it.
Yeah, especially
But-
in an area control game when you're going around and just waiting for your turn, and you're like, I hope I can draw that card. Or
Yeah.
there's an element of when people play cards and it goes to the center table,
Mm-hmm.
and then in a higher player count, you're like, ooh, that card. But then when it comes around to you, that card's gone now.
Mm-hmm. Gone. Yeah.
And so you're like, well, now I just got to top deck it. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. So, and now you're waiting again, and you're kind of stuck. I think you got
Yes.
stuck in that loop like 4 turns in a row or something.
And
like
I think
that.
it was several players in a row when we were all just kind of like, okay. So I think that was what finally did it.
Yeah.
But now I miss it because it is a fun one to kind of pull out every now and then. Not one that we would probably gravitate to all the time,
No.
but something that I kind of just wish was there.
was there,
when
so
we're
you can
in the mood
get that taste
for
yeah.
it, right? So anyway, that is our number 6, Ethnos.
Okay, moving on to number 5. This is a game that I really do regret offloading this one. I think this was maybe me that first brought it up when we said we're gonna potentially call this game.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. This is the original edition. It's from Z-Man Games, published in 2014 and designed by Stefan Bogan. And this is Camel Up. Camel Up, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of this zany racing betting game where you are racing these camels for one lap around this track, and there's camels of different colors and dice that represent each one. And there's kind of you don't really know what's going to happen. And this is one of those games where camels can stack. And so it creates these kind of weird situations where a camel that was way behind could all of a sudden tie and then go way out in front.
Yes,
and you
that's
can't really
right.
figure out, who to bet on early on.
And so this game can play quite a few people.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact max player count, but the more the better.
Quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. And so we played a few games where we had the full complement, and it makes for some really, really interesting moments.
Yeah.
A lot of around the table when
Yeah.
you don't know what's going to happen, and
Right.
suddenly the camel pulls all the way up front. And then there's this mechanism where players can put a token out onto the board. So if a camel lands on that token, you get money, because at the very end of the game, it's whoever has the most money wins.
Yeah, and that token can either push the camel forward
Yes.
or hold it back and push it backwards. So it's
Yes.
kind of like you're trying to hedge your bets or trying to make your bet kind of work out for you. In
You're
your
trying
favor.
to fix the
Trying to fix the
race.
game a little, yeah. So I kind of regret not having this because it's a pretty light game. It's
Yeah.
pretty easy to teach. I would say it's in the gateway category or a lighter category. So I wish I could be playing this with my family, especially my parents. I think they can grasp the concepts of the game, and then we have a good time. So I do regret not having that right now. We have played the second edition. It did add a little bit more zaniness. I don't truly recall what goes on a little differently. I think the camels have the ability to actually move backwards in that
I
game.
don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
actually.
I played it one time, and I think I still like the original one better. Yeah, so that is our number 5. That is Camel Up.
All right, we are more than halfway there. We're on number 4. So our number 4 is more like my number 4 because it is a game that I really, really miss. I really love this game, and if you've been watching a few of our videos, then you probably already know what this is. It was published by Wise Wizard Games and designed by Robert Doherty and Darwin Castle, and the game is called Star Realms. This is a card game. This is a deck builder. It's a very fast kind of like dueling deck builder where you are playing as different factions, I guess, in space, and you're just going to war with each other, and you're trying to get the other person to run out of their 50 lives. I think it's 50.
Yes, and it's not that you have asymmetric factions. Just as you're just one team, they're one team. You start with the same exact kind of cards in your hand, and then you basically deck build and then try to attack each other and protect yourself against attack.
And so at the time when we had been playing it or when we had owned it, I was really into that game. That was the first deck builder that I had learned after diving into the hobby for the first time. Before that I had played Dominion a few times online, but I wasn't quite into the hobby yet.
Right.
And so this was a very interesting experience for me because it was basically what I thought Dominion was, but in this like quick, really intense kind of format because it's just a race to just rid your person of lives. And it's not this whole like, well, I need this combination of stuff, that Dominion can be like. And I really loved it. But somebody here didn't.
I was not, because if you have watched some of our videos, I have discussed this before. When I first got into the hobby, deck building as a mechanism, it was understood, but it wasn't understood, if that makes sense. So I wasn't good at culling bad cards in deck building. And so for me, it was just a very frustrating experience every time I'd play because I never could really formulate a good hand because I was making bad decisions. And so I would just get slaughtered. And so after a while, it became a very kind of uninspiring gameplay for me.
Feet dragging.
Yeah, exactly. Feet dragging. And so I would just get kind of slaughtered every time. And so at a certain point, I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm pretty much over it. So we culled it. But now that I understand deck building, this is why it's on the list, because I'm like, you know what? I would like another crack at Star Realms. I'm totally willing to try it again. So maybe we will pick it up.
Yeah, if we made our list separately, this would be my number 1. I really, really enjoy Star Realms, and this is probably something we are going to pick up. It's not, from what I remember, it's a pretty affordable card game, and now that it's been a few years, there's a few expansions to it, so I would be really interested in seeing how everything kind of interacts now. And seeing how much you've upped your game.
Yes,
so.
that's part of the reason why. Like, I want to see.
Get rid of the 1 coin.
Yes. Now that I'm years past that, I'm very interested to see how well I would fare now, if I even stand a chance.
We will let you know.
Yeah.
But until then, that is our number 4, Star Realms.
Okay, so moving on to our number 3 game on our list. This is a game that actually came out back in 2004, and until researching recently, I didn't realize that this game was that old in terms of board gaming.
Me too, that was surprising.
This is published by Avalon Hill Games and designed by 5 different designers, so it's a story-based game. Bruce Glasgow, Rob Davio, Bill McQuillan, Mike A. Selinker, and T1 Woodruff. And this is Betrayal at House on the Hill. This is technically a co-op game up to a certain point, and then there's an event that happens in the story of the game in which somebody is going to betray the group, and they will basically be on their own with their own individual win condition, and the collective group of remaining people have their own win condition.
Well, what truly happens? First of all, this is like a dungeon crawler,
Yes.
but like in a haunted house. It's
story-based
a haunted house crawler. And at some point in the game, depending on the conditions around the table, a haunt will occur, and that is what this event is.
Right.
And then you'll flip in your book and you look for this specific case that is going to be happening.
Yep.
And that case is dependent on I believe it's like dependent on what items people have, or like who caused the haunt to occur,
Yep.
because there are certain conditions that'll push that haunt track forward. The scenario will tell you who is the betrayer.
Right.
And that person will leave the room, and then they will have their own betrayer handbook,
Yes.
their own story handbook that details everything that they need to do in order to win. And then everybody else, it now becomes a semi-co-op where everybody else is like them against the betrayer.
Exactly, yeah. And so we've played a handful of these scenarios. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it was me that called it.
Yeah, I really liked it.
We played a handful of scenarios, but after a while, we were having trouble getting it played. And then it's kind of sat there for a little while. And at a certain point, we were like, I don't think we're going to play this, because every time we propose this game, we're not getting it played for some reason. We're moving on to a different game. And so at a certain point, we decided to call it. But there are so many stories in that book. Even though you're kind of technically doing the same thing, for me, it gets exciting to see what the asymmetry is in once the betrayal happens.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of see the different things that you have to do and the different scenarios, whether I'm on the betrayer side or on the original team side.
We should have read through them all.
We should, yeah.
Do you do that? Do you just spoil all the scenarios for you? I'm just kidding. We should have played through them all.
We should have, yeah. There's a lot of scenarios in there. There's quite a bit. And so I think we played maybe 10% of them.
I don't know.
You know,
Something very not a lot. I mean, I think that the ideal thing is to get a group together who all knows the game, and then just play that game with them. But at that point, you might as well get Betrayal Legacy. So that's a little sad.
Maybe one day we'll get back around to it. It would be nice to play it again sometime. But that is our number 3, Betrayal at House on the Hill.
All right, we are down to our last 2. This second to last one is an interesting one for me, because it was definitely Naveen who decided to call this game.
Okay.
This game was released in 2016, published by Matago and designed by Christian Martinez, and it is a game called Inish. So this is a really beautiful looking area control game that is card driven for the most part, if I remember correctly. I've only played this game a couple times. The first time I had played it, it wasn't with Naveen, and when I played it, I initially thought, oh wow, this is a game that Naveen is going to love.
Yeah.
So we got it for, I think we got it in a math trade, either in a math trade or in a flea market.
Right.
And it was in Shrink, and I thought, this is great. We're going to play it, Naveen's going to love it. And so we went to a local gaming meetup around that time.
Yep.
And our friend of ours was like, okay, well, why don't you just play our copy first, since yours is in Shrink? And then you can see if you really like it.
Right.
And so we agreed, and the meetup was at a restaurant. And so, there are a lot of people there, and a lot of times if they're looking for a game, we all will typically be friendly and we'll all play games together. So we had a 4th person join us who happened to be eating at this restaurant at the same time. Some kind of a roast beef sandwich.
Something like that, yeah.
With his hands.
Yes.
Holding the cards with the roast beef sandwich. And the whole time, Naveen was just focused on the fact that this person could dare do that.
To somebody else's game.
Somebody else's game. And
Crossing hands. Like, it would be sandwich, cards. They'd put down sandwich, hold cards, thumb through, then switch, eating now with the left hand.
I don't even think it was a sandwich. I think it was just roast beef.
It might have just, I don't know, and fries or something.
I think it was straight roast beef and Inish. And all of this to say that Naveen never wanted to play Inish again. Ruined by a person with roast beef.
There definitely came a point where I was like, oh, maybe we should take a break to go. We should go wash our hands or something. He's like, no, it's okay. I'll just take a napkin. And I was like, I'm basically telling you to go wash your hands right now.
Yeah, in hindsight, we probably should have been more forward about it, but we figured that it was our friend's game, and who was gonna say it? That kind of dynamic around the table is a little bit tough.
I saw a definite drip of sauce going down the guy's arm, and he was just cool with napkin, wipe, let's proceed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong. I
What
don't
can you
know. Yeah, but the game itself is an area control game. There is a little bit of king making in this game because I believe in order to win in Inish in the round before you can win or are eligible to win, you must declare, hey, next round I can win.
Yes.
And so
Yeah,
everybody
that's
will then whoop, and turn to you and be like, well, I don't want you to win, so
Yeah.
let's all work together to stop that.
That's
and
true.
so, man, sometimes with king making in games, it's just like, I want to be clever on my win. Like I want to outsmart and
You don't want to announce to
outmaneuver.
everybody that you're about to win.
Yeah,
basically.
like I want you to maybe see it on your own. I don't want to have to announce it. So
Yeah.
I heard the expansion helps with a lot of stuff.
Mm.
I don't know much about it, but that is something that knowing that was my one gripe of the game, and that there's an expansion that kind of course
Fixes
corrects
it.
a little bit.
Mm.
It definitely is a reason why it's now on the list.
So if you enjoy area control, check out Inish. Our number 2.
Okay, our number 1. This is one that Monique and I definitely agree with as our number 1. I think when you make a list combined, you have to agree on it. And hands down, when we were making this list, this was the first thing that popped in our head, right?
And the interesting thing about it is we actually still own this game.
We do. So
a version of it.
We'll explain. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is a game that came out in 2015. It is designed by Dan Kassar, and it's the Z-Man edition specifically. And this game is Arboretum,
Yeah.
the green box from Z-Man games.
So sad.
We called it because the new deluxe one was coming out, and
We were promised greatness.
we were promised greatness, and nothing changed in the gameplay, but the art kind of changed. And looking back now, we much rather prefer the box art of the green one as well as the actual card art
Yeah.
of the green one. So we still own Arboretum. We love that game. We think it's a fantastic game. It's high up there for me and for you.
Oh yeah, I love that game. So maybe this is cheating a little.
it's kinda
because we
cheating a
still
little bit.
Own the game, but we couldn't get our minds off of the fact that over the year or two, that was the one game that we actually talk about from time to time about, gosh, we shouldn't have let our old copy go. And
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing wrong with the newer edition, and the cards are beautiful. Like the whole reason why we decided to call it the first one was because we had seen preview images of what the cards look like, and the tree art, the colors, everything pops. It's really beautiful.
Yep.
But there was just something about that green, kind of like old style artwork on that box.
Yeah.
It's a smaller box size. You know, the way that the box is made is just different. The feel of that like, I don't know, the feel of that old box is just different. And that we play it less, I feel like, also because of the look of the game.
Maybe, yeah. I think so.
There's definitely an amount of aesthetics that come into play whenever you want to play a game, something that pulls you into it, right?
Yep,
like
totally.
It's interesting to me that it's the same game, but for us it feels different.
It does,
because of the appearance of the box. It's a very interesting game. In fact, it's the very first video that we've made on our YouTube channel, a tutorial for that game.
That's right.
Don't watch it. It's terrible. But that's just kind of a test of how much we like that game.
Yes,
and
that's true.
I wish we had the original version.
Same.
That's all it is.
Yep. So that is our number 1 regretted game that we got rid of. That is Arboretum, the first edition, the Z-Man edition.
Bring it back!
Bring it back, yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for watching our video. Thank you again to our wonderful Patreon community for voting on this specific topic. We really appreciate your input, and we had a lot of fun making this list because it's not something that we think about, all the time. We would love to hear from you. What are the games that you most regret getting rid of? Please let us know in the comments down below.
Thank you all so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thank you. Bye.